Good morning, everyone. Almost good afternoon. Hopefully, have you been enjoying the session so far? Great. I'm Nedra Dickinson, and I think I have one of the coolest roles at Accenture. So I lead our global supplier inclusion and sustainability. So I get a chance to find businesses that are owned by amazing women like yourself, all diverse types around the world. I get to help develop them and then integrate them successfully into our supply chain and that of our clients, driving real impact. So I think what we're going to talk about today is going to be really important because you can't turn on any news or look at any social media without seeing AI. And so I think whoever did that marketing is genius. AI's always been around. So we're going to get into the Gen AI, but when you think about leveraging a lot of AI, do we really trust it? Do we really understand what's being put out there? So what's really going to be important is when we come down to data. So we're really going to talk about and peel back the layers with this panel here on how do we really look at the biases, what's going to be equitable, and what should we look at that's going to be very transparent and fair. So I think Tamara spoke this morning that Accenture did a huge investment in AI, around $3 billion, I believe. But there's also a research paper that we did, and in that research around trust and transparency, only 35% of people trusted what AI was going to bring in. So that's where we've got to learn to, how can it help us? Because there are some good things that we can see as well as in small businesses. We can also see how it can help you with some of the processes and reading some of the contracts. So there is some good that's in there, but that human component around AI is going to be really important. So get out your notepads. We're going to learn how AI is going to be good, but we're also going to learn the parts of where it needs to be equitable. We need to tackle any of the biases that are going to come in, and we've got to make sure that we have the right data in. So thank you all. Enjoy the great panel, and I'll see you guys later.
Okay, ladies, next I would like to welcome to the stage Nichol Bradford, the Executive in Resident at AI plus HI SHRM, who will be moderating this conversation, Making AI Equitable. Join me in welcoming Nichol to the stage.
Well, okay. All right, well, I thought that she was going to introduce everyone. So I have Aster Angagao. She is with the VP of Commercial and Public Sectors for Amazon Business. Dr. Rachel, yeah. Dr. Rachel Gillum, she's the VP Ethical and Humane Use of Technology at Salesforce. And then Andrea Francis, she's Global Data AI Managing Director, CFO, and Enterprise Lead at Accenture. Yeah, also our generous sponsors for this event. So, okay, everyone, sit down. All right, so to set the stage, why are we here? We're here because we're at the apex of one of the most important revolutions. This stage of AI is a revolution like none other. And so I am thrilled to see so many of you here in this room, because I would argue that Black women are predisposed to succeed with AI, and we'll talk about that. So this panel is going to be in 4 parts. The first part, setting the stage, you'll hear a little bit about us and our why. The second part, I was inspired last night by our speaker who was talking about not just how to play not to lose, but how to play to win. So we're going to talk about responsible AI and specifically how not to lose. But then we're going to go into how to win with AI. How do you specifically win with AI? And then after that, we're going to get real practical. You walking out of this room, what do you do tomorrow? What do you do the next day so that you specifically, and all of the women in your circles, because you're here, but every one of you, you know how we do it. You have women back at your companies, you have women in your communities that you touch, and so the knowledge and the information that you take from this event, we all know that you will seed all of the women around you. So it's bigger than all of us, what we're about to do in here together. Okay? How's that sound? All right. So first off, just so we can know who's in the room, who is using AI? Who's messed around with ChatGPT, maybe done a recipe? Okay, great. So I'm going to ask three parts and be totally honest. Who's a little afraid of AI? You read the headlines, a little afraid. Okay. Who is a little excited? And by the way, you can pick more than one. All right. And then who's in the middle? You're excited and you're afraid. And that's why you're here. You want to make sense of it. Okay, great. So that's who's in the room. All right, so what we wanted to start off with is from each of our panelists, because we've all been in tech for a while, like why are you in tech and what is your why? So, Rachel?
Yeah, I guess I'll kick it off. Well, first of all, so good to see your beautiful faces and thank you for having me, and shout out to my Salesforce crew right in front. But actually, this is my first job in tech. I've been at Salesforce over 4 years. Mm-hmm. I actually started in the national security space and made my way over to California when I was pursuing my doctorate at Stanford and got into consulting, geopolitical consulting. And I quickly saw a lot of these emerging issues, emerging technologies, having a huge impact on national security, but our economy, on society, and there were some key challenges and key risks, as well as a lot to be excited about. So as I came to Salesforce in my role, our team is basically the responsible AI team. We think about not only the impact of AI for our customers, but also larger society and sort of that bigger picture lens. And so my why now is, there's so many amazing, hardworking Black women, Black people in the world. I feel really privileged that I do have a seat at the table. And knowing this technology, some of the opportunities, but also risks they pose, like I need to speak up, I need to lean in, I need to be here and make sure our voices are represented as this new emergent technology continues to impact our lives in really significant ways. So really excited to be here and dive in with these ladies.
That's great, thank you. Andrea?
Yeah, absolutely, and thank you for having me as part of this, and to my Accenture team that are out there. So my why, so I've always been a naturally curious person. I ended up getting a degree from a historically Black college, Southern University, and then in engineering, and then went on to get my master's at MIT, so I am a geek by nature. About 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and I sat down with my oncologist, and he put 32 different treatments in front of me and basically said, pick one. And when he looked, I had this incredulous look on my face, and he said, yeah, chemotherapy it's an art, not a science. I said, well, it has to be, because I need to survive. And at this time, IBM had come out with a program to use artificial intelligence to pick the right course of treatment for women, for cancer survivors, or cancer patients. And I thought, okay, I need that. And so I said, tell me, how long have you been doing this? He says, well, I've collected data for the past 20 years. I said, okay, well, we're going to use some statistics. And we're going to figure out, based on my markers and your knowledge, we're going to do some basic statistics, and we're going to come up with the right course of action for me, because 32 is not an option. Like, we have to pick the right one. And we did that. So we went back and we figured it out. 8 weeks of my life dedicated to chemotherapy, but we got it right. 10 years later, I'm here. Thank you. Thank you. But what I realized was that I was privileged, and I realized that I had amazing things at my disposal. I had great insurance. I was backed by, I had an amazing tribe of women around me, my family, but I had access. And I thought about the women that looked like me that did not have the access, that didn't have the ability to say, okay, we're going to use statistical analysis. We're going to take a data-driven approach to help me survive this. And the women that just don't have it. So this is very personal for me. On a professional level, I love it. This is the watershed moment in my career that I have been waiting for in terms of technology, because I believe in it. I think it's going to revolutionize how we do things, but it's also quite personal. So I believe that we must democratize AI if we're going to really get the full potential from it. So that's why I'm in this space.
And Esther?
Well, I just want to say thank you for everyone who's here, and thank you, Nichol, and both of you, and thank you for the Amazon team. So my why. I am a recent arrival to tech as well, like Rachel. I joined Amazon about 2.5 years ago. My why is really about customer service. We have 2 leadership principles at Amazon. Both of them, I mean, we have many, but 2 of them are my favorite. One is customer obsession. The other one is learn and be curious. And I think those are the 2 things that brought me to tech. And when I was in service, I always understood service, product, technology together creates a bigger impact in society, and it is an absolutely scalable model to get there. So my why is to make an impact at scale.
I love it. And I'm in tech because of Nichol.
Yes.
When I was a little girl growing up in Houston, Texas, in a neighborhood filled with no one who looked like me, I used to watch Star Trek. And then because she was on Star Trek, every cast afterwards always had someone black on it, and that's how I knew we made it. And you know, it's interesting, like a quick side story about her, she was gonna quit Star Trek after the first season because it wasn't really doing any well, and she was getting a lot of hate mail. And she was invited to a benefit where they told her her biggest fan was there and wanted to speak with her. And she was like, okay, yeah, I'll talk to my biggest fan, Dr. Martin Luther King.
Wow.
And she told him she was gonna quit. And he said, oh no, you can't, because you being on that show shows people what we're working for. And so she didn't. And so because of that, you know, little black girls and little black boys for decades have seen black people with science and technology and as peers. So my background, I've been in tech for 2 decades now. The first decade really sort of in video games. I've worked on some of the biggest games in the world, World of Warcraft. I operated China. So I've worked with lots of technical teams, but I am not a technical person. That's going to be important for later in our discussion. And I also worked on Fortnite for a couple of years. In addition, I'm a tech investor. I'm probably one of the few, and I want them to be more black women running a VC fund that invests in technology. And then the last part, the reason why I'm here, is that I'm the executive in residence for the Society of Human Resource Management. And I'm focused on human and AI enablement, which is really about creating bridges for people to get to this future and to do it through HR, which is, a universal function, and dedicated to the development of people. So that's my why. The responsible AI, I was just like, this is just me. thinking.
Excited.
So the next section is we're going to talk, now that you've heard all of our whys, the next section is that we're going to talk about responsible AI. This is like, how do we make sure, how not to lose, you know, and how do we make sure that AI is developed ethically and responsibly, that it's accountable and that it's transparent, and how do we make sure that there isn't algorithmic bias. So I think that's a great conversation to start with you, Rachel.
Yeah, no, and it is a good question because this is exactly what my team is dedicated to. So as I mentioned, our team is called Ethical and Humane Use of Technology, again, really focused on the impact of our technologies on society as well as our customers. And so we do this from soup to nuts, so starting with the development, thinking about the data that's going into our systems, making sure it's representative, making sure it's cleaned, making sure we have the rights to use it, to the design, thinking about how are we going to enable our users to have visibility and transparency into how to operate and to guide and nudge them to use things correctly, inserting features so they can understand, you know, where did this system pull this information so you can verify its accuracy. We rigorously test for bias and harmful outputs and make sure we're doing those adjustments. And then when it's deployed, we have some rules and some guardrails because we know there are some risky use cases, and I'm sure we'll get into those. But so we have some rules. So for example, we, you know, actually for over 5 years, we've had rules around our AI use. So we haven't actually allowed for the use of facial recognition for our tools for a variety of reasons, but I'm sure you all have heard of some of the challenges around inaccuracy, especially around darker skin, for women, for non-binary, because of, you know, folks in the past who didn't have representative data sets. The systems weren't as good at recognizing those individuals. And so, and this has had real world impacts for folks, right? We've had cases where individuals have been arrested wrongfully because they were misidentified by those systems. And so just to put a fine point on why it's so important that we lean into this work, and it's so important that we have folks that look like us at the table to insist that we're asking those questions and putting in that work. But anyway, we do this by design. We've really invested in it and lean into it. And yeah, day in and day out, this is what I do.
Yeah, and in each of these sections, we are going to do the real talk. You know, as you all think about AI, one of the things that we absolutely have to get right is we have to nail this algorithmic bias thing. You've probably seen some of the headlines, like there was a test where if someone was inputting using African American slang, then the output recommended things like the death penalty for certain, you know, crimes, and not for people who are inputting in another way of speaking. And also there's, you know, it goes on and on and on. And so, you know, this is the thing, like we absolutely have to get this right. So as you are thinking about, you know, what you're an activist about, this is one of the things that we must be activist on.
Yeah, I would agree. I was just thinking, when we talk to our clients at Accenture, we always, and just building on your point, we always think about having a human in the loop. We have to design artificial intelligence. It has to be designed responsibly. You always want to have a human in the loop to do that testing. Governance is so important. Making sure that you set up a structure in terms of, you know, who should be allowed to use the system, what data are you inputting, what are the guardrails that you want to put into anything that you're building that involves AI. And then making sure that you can test it continuously. Making sure that there's traceability, there's transparency, there's accuracy, and that the data that goes into the system is what you would want. With these, you know, ChatGPT and large language models, they feed on data. The only way they won't hallucinate and give you garbage out is that you have to have a really solid data set. So having that skill in place and having that process in place to make sure that you're constantly testing and that there's always a human in the loop, you know, building on that, and then that governance that's in place. And of course, you know, we know that government is going to move slower than technology. And so We have to think about the regulations that are coming out, but they are coming out. And as companies, we have to adhere to those regulations. The EU just put out their new regulations. Our current administration here in our country, they put out their regulations, so we need to make sure that we're adhering to those, but that governance structure is going to be so important.
Yeah, and we're getting a little bit of help, as Andrea said, from the EEOC has come out and said, you are responsible for the output of your AI. You don't get to pass the buck. And I think this one's really important because on social media, the social platforms were able to say that they weren't responsible for what happened on the platform. And we spent about a decade playing catch up on that. And by the way, just something that you might, not something you might have heard before. How fortunate are we that social media was such a show, right? Because if we were moving into AI without understanding the potential downsides, if we were naive at this moment, like who in here is not naive anymore? You can all raise your hands. You're not naive. Everybody raise your hands. You are not naive.
That's right.
Right? So we're not naive. And that's why, the EEOC, for example, there have been a couple of companies that have tried to say, the AI was hallucinating. Like a few years ago, Air Canada's chatbot told someone they could have a refund on something they couldn't have a refund on, and Air Canada tried not to pay for it, and the Canadian courts came down and said, oh, no, you have to pay for it. And so that's really helpful. So we're having some help in that way. So what's going on in Amazon?
Yeah, so I think a lot. I say a couple of things. I think first, I'm reassured that all of us here actually work together on this topic of AI. I'm sure Accenture and also Salesforce is working with AWS and others.
Yes, we are.
And we're also working vice versa. So I think the great thing in this is we're customers and clients sitting together discussing this. So that's a really great opportunity for us. At Amazon, we realize there is an evolution to responsible AI, which is the first one is the bolt-on. So something exists, so you add something else to fix it or put a mechanism to correct it. The second thing is that there is a built-in mechanism that we can all put in to make sure there is a nudge, there is a check, all of these things are right. The last one is really what we call born inclusive. Really starting from the design point of view, looking at it and creating the right structure to make sure we're doing the right thing from the beginning. And I mentioned it to you earlier, I think one of the things that's really important here is participation. So are we participating in the development of AI? And so at Amazon, the key thinking is how can we enable people in general, people in the underserved community especially, to participate in this. So there are about 1,600 curriculums around technology, cloud computing, that is impacting about 1.2 million underserved community individuals. And then providing scholarship up to 40,000 for about 400 students. I think that is really important because if we're not participating and we're not part of the built-out process, we're on the outside trying to fix it. So I would encourage all of us, of course, to take part and also educate our children to take part in it as well.
Yeah, and so one of the things that's really exciting about this generation of AI that's different than the previous enterprise levels of AI, because there was like AI theory, and then there was enterprise implementations. So the back end of the value chain, the factories, all of that. Now this is generative AI where you can touch it. And you can have it not just respond to you, but the next step is it will do things for you. And so, what that means, which is exciting, is that almost every company, with the exception of some of the tech companies who built it, almost every company is on the starting blocks. There are very few experts. There are very few experts. And there might be experts in AI, but there are not a lot of experts in implementation of this generation of AI. And so what Rachel said about being in the room on ensuring responsible AI, there isn't any reason why every one of you cannot become an AI catalyst in your organization, because there are no experts very few experts on the implementation side, how it actually works in a company, how it actually works in your company, in your industry, in your sector. There might be consultants who can help you on the technology side, but how it actually works through your value chain, your company, your customers, that is something that you can participate in. And while you're there in the room, you can be the one to say that this needs to be inclusive, and because you're there. So anything on that?
No, couldn't have said it better. Like, just that, I think this is a real, there's many, but a real business case for diversity, equity, and inclusion, because it is a brand reputation, like, imperative. Like, whatever AI you're deploying, your business is deploying, if it's spewing toxic things, if it's resulting in, again, people getting arrested, or even if you're speaking about HR, screening resumes and favoring men over women, like, that's a real problem for your company. I mean, you name it, think about healthcare.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a real business imperative. So I couldn't agree more that this is an opportunity for each one of you, again, at different stages of AI, when you're in the room, speak up, lean in. If something seems off, ask about it. Again, anyone who says they're an expert in generative AI and all the things, like, they're not. Like, everyone is still learning, and this technology is moving so quickly. So yeah, just that would be my big takeaway, is, like, lean in, like, ask critical questions. Being inclusive from the beginning is so important, thinking about who are we designing this tool for, and making sure we have different folks at the table at every stage of that process.
Yeah, absolutely. I would just add that if you think about the speed at which this is moving, when ChatGPT came out, it took 5 days for them to get to 1 million users, and now they're at 300 million users. So we know that this is moving incredibly fast. And generative AI has this amazing ability to disrupt and to reinvent how companies work. But with that disruption can come distrust and displacement. And that is something that is, executives, we have to think about as we implement AI. It should not be a fear of displacement. It should be a fear of, what can I do next? It opens the doors to new opportunities, new skills, new, things that we had not thought, areas we didn't think we would go into. So I would just say that, every company should be thinking about, how do you build that trust between your employees and, the business, to make sure that they understand that, yes, processes will be disrupted, but there's an opportunity to upskill. Every company should have a plan in place to upskill, to reskill their employees as you implement this. And I think as catalysts at your companies, you can be that advocate that thinks about, okay, how will the business use this? How will it affect my teams? What new skills should we have? And how can I be that advocate to push for upskilling, especially, women of color or, minorities within your firm, making sure that they are represented as well and they're part of that upskilling. At Accenture, we are really focused on that piece, and that everyone from our most senior leaders down to our junior practitioners are getting training in this. We strive to be the most AI literate company on the planet. And so everyone is learning about AI and how it gets implemented, and we all have to go through the training. So I think that's another way that you can be a catalyst for your firm.
Yeah, Accenture has the best research in the business, by the way, and I just love the way that they are thinking about the future, because 44% of current tasks, if you include all of the rote things, so your job is what you hope to do plus all the things that you didn't sign up for, 44% of those tasks are in scope for automation or augmentation, And so the vision of how jobs and roles are expanded is essential, and Accenture's done such a great job describing what that looks like. Before we move on to how to win, Aster, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think stories are powerful, so I just want to share one thing that is really interesting. You know how we fear new technology. When a new technology comes, we're always shying away from it. So I'm going to take you back to landlines. I know a lot of you think that is just like a long time ago. So in Africa, 99% of the population did not have a landline. And so to catch up with landline required a lot of infrastructure and lines put in the ground to make it happen. Then cell phone came. Cell phone gave the opportunity to leapfrog landline. And when you go to Africa now, a farmer would call somebody in the city to find out the price of the crop and how they would be able to set crop prices. So your street vendor would try to find what the exchange rate is for the day. So there is an opportunity to up-level an underserved community. So I think AI brings a huge opportunity for our community to up-level and really create impact at scale. So when we were talking about healthcare and healthcare biases exist today doctor by doctor, right? They look at you and they make a decision whether you should have XYZ disease because that's a Black person's disease. But I think creating an AI that could actually diagnose us better anonymously is going to make us so much better. There's so many areas where we as underserved community can be served better, but we need to be active participants. I think that's the ideal catalyst comes in.
Yeah. And so with that, that's the perfect bridge to move into playing to win. Mm-hmm. Like how do you really win with it? At SHRM, we're able to survey 30,000 workers every week. And so we did a smaller study of about 3,000 HR professionals, and we saw that if an HR person worked in a company that was starting to use AI, they were 16 times more likely to believe that it could be job expanding as opposed to job eliminating. In addition, some of the people who were using AI to look at resumes, a third of them, 1 in 3, said that they actually got more diverse inputs. They got more diverse people to interview. So it's possible for it to be expanding for us. So playing to win. So what's the opportunity so that everyone benefits? And what specifically, we talked a little bit, but what specifically can AI do for Black women and Black people?
Oh, absolutely. So if we think about, and I like the point you made about research. So if you think about the continuum that we've been on with artificial intelligence, you go back to 2000, this is where we had, descriptive analytics. Very manual, but we had a lot of dashboards. We kind of knew what happened. Then we moved into, prescriptive analytics. I now know, what happened, and now I know my next best action. And, then we got into, it was predictive analytics. I now know my next best action. But then when we moved into prescriptive analytics, now I can start to simulate things. I can now start to model, and I can forecast my business better. But, and then we started doing it at scale. But those things are table stakes now. Those are the things that, every company should be doing. It's the companies that really are reinventing themselves, the ones that want to leapfrog the competition. They're the ones that have moved into RPA, cognitive computing. They're the ones that are thinking about, how do machines view things as a human would? So think self-driving cars. And then generative AI comes on the scene. And now we have the ability with, a linguistic prompt to get something out that's very human-like. It's the companies that took that transformational journey that are really outperforming their competition. And when I think about that continuum, I think about all the doors that have been opened to employees, but especially Black women. And I think about women in my firm. There are so many. We can contribute to the design. We can contribute to the conception of these different ideas. We can contribute to the programming, the prompting. There's so many new jobs that have been created as this continuum, as we've gone on this continuum. And you don't have to be this deep data scientist or data engineer to do that. So there's so many new opportunities. And the other thing we have to think about is that this is projected to be a $1.4 trillion business by 2029. And there is a huge skills gap. And only 26% of women are filling the roles that are required for artificial intelligence. So we as women, we as Black women, we have an opportunity to start to fill that skills gap with these new skills and these new roles that are being created. So that I see this as a huge opportunity for us to actually to take our share of those roles.
Esther, how do we win?
So I think there is energy expansion, or we can, diffuse our energy thinking about what is this going to do, how is it going to impact us, and we're going to lose jobs. All of those things are real, but if we focus on the opportunity by participating in this process, we could actually be better, earn more, and direct our kids in the right area, and don't fear it. So even all of us who are here today can research, read, understand, and participate, and start feeding the model in every interaction that we have in this process. And also identify roles, and I think Rachel said it earlier, there isn't really anybody that's an expert today. So there is a huge entrepreneurship opportunity that we should all really think about and leverage. I don't know what that looks like, but I think if we open our mind and say, how can we really take advantage of this new up-and-coming opportunity, is going to help our kids and also going to help us. But we need to really educate ourselves first.
And Rachel, how do we win?
No, I love that. And just echoing everything that was said, I think that there's that very interesting research that's showing that, again, generative AI is able to really bring up even like entry-level, lower-level workers to be performing at the same level as someone with 10 years of experience. So particularly for more junior folks, like, lean into that, like, how can you leverage it in your job to up-level your performance? I mean, it's really incredible to see that, and some of our customers have shared their stories, like we love to talk about Gucci has given our products to their sales workers to help up-level their work, and it's been really successful. But I'll also say to the more senior ladies, if maybe we're not as worried about our jobs being fully automated in the immediate future, but the competition you'll be facing in your next job transition, great, you're a great lawyer, but if you're a lawyer who knows how to leverage AI in a really effective way, that's who's going to get the job, dare I say. Or if you're the radiologist who is great, but the one who knows how to really leverage AI is really going to be the one that they're going to want to drive the organization into that next era of the economy. So just, again, another nudge, like, lean in. It doesn't matter if you're in tech or not. I think it's important that we're playing with these tools. We're starting to learn them in whatever field, just because this is the future of our economy, and we want to be part of that.
And we're going to go to questions after this, but think of AI less like technology and more like electricity or water. It's going to be that pervasive. And I have reach out to me on LinkedIn and say white paper. I have a white paper coming out that's going to be exactly how to become an AI catalyst. Because AI catalysts often, when you look at research historically, they're non-technical people. Sometimes they are technical, but often they aren't. They're the person who's able to understand what the business priorities are, get resources allocated, build cross-functional teams, because AI is very much a horizontal technology. And they're the ones that educate the organization so that people see what's in it for them and how it can benefit them. And so if you think that you can do those 4 things, then you can be the AI catalyst. And so with that, we'd like to take some questions.
Oh, wow.
I just want to say thank you guys so much. This is an amazing conversation. I'm loving the insight from you. My name is Nia McIntosh. I'm a product manager. So once again, not a technical role, but am leading the charge for all of my products. 4 out of 5 do use AI. And a lot of the conversation that I have with business is around the data and what you put into the AI tools, only as good as the data. So I know you, Andrea and Rachel, you guys kind of mentioned this. When I'm leading the charge for talking about data governance in a large organization, what are some advice that you can give me and some touch points that I can bring to leadership to talk about the importance of this when we are thinking about, leading in the space using AI?
From a,
No, please go.
okay, sorry. I would say the one thing that with all the clients that I work with, and I work primarily with CFOs, and so there's a lot of data in the finance space. And the one thing I always tell them is that, yes, you should have an understanding of where your data is, the shape that it's in, where can you access it, what's the data veracity, have you done the data cleansing? There's a lot of things that you have to do to really make sure that what you're putting into the model will give you what you're expecting. But it's that data governance structure that is so critical. And when I say data governance, it is parts of the business being at the table discussing how you use data, where is your data, what inputs do you want, and really, what does the end game look like? What are you trying to achieve? And I would also say that, it's those business owners, not being technical people, that know more about the data than the technical people. So you're bringing an amazing perspective to the table on how things actually work. So that's one thing you always want to keep in mind. And I would also say is that, yes, the models require a lot of data, but your data doesn't have to be perfect to get started. Start with proof of concepts, and then think about things that you can actually scale up. So it doesn't have to be something so small just because, well, we don't have enough data, we don't know where it is, but it also is that catalyst for you to start to build that data lake. We spent a very long time getting our data right in Accenture, and we love to be our own best credential. And I will say that we've been on a transformation journey that has just been amazing. That's really helped our people, do some great stuff with AI internally.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Christina Hartfield. I'm with JP Morgan Private Bank. I recently attended a workshop where they talked about AI and the use of tools like ChatGPT and how, as users, we should be protecting ourselves and our identity because we don't know where AI is going in the future. Can you any of you talk about ways that everyday users can protect themselves while they're using these type of AI tools?
Yeah, those are great. That's a great question. There's a lot of things to say there, but yeah, just to know that when you do submit something into ChatGPT, it takes that data and it keeps training itself on that data. So you should be mindful if you don't want to put a lot of personal information potentially in there. Certainly not your company's personal information. So as you're thinking of ways to amplify your work at work, be thoughtful about that. I think that's like a starting point there. Just being mindful of how it's being used. I think it's more broad than like AI. I think it's like the data you have online more generally, just because a lot of these systems will scrape what's online to train their systems, even without your consent. I know some of this is playing out in the courts, but that's the case now. So I think more broadly, the photos you upload, the stuff you put online like that, you're making that available for companies who are trying to make a quick buck in some cases. So that would be my main advice to that.
Yeah, I would absolutely echo that. Just with ChatGPT, I use it. I use it every day. I ask it questions just to make sure that I'm thinking about things properly, and I know that that's training the model. I think internally to your company, making sure that you've got the guardrails in terms of using these models internally and having some rules. There is a company that, told its executives, go out and test this thing, see what it can do and put some information out there. Well, they put their information that was not publicly available into the model, and now it's out into the world. So you want to be very careful what you use, and I use it, I don't use I make sure that I always use it mindfully in terms of, my own work, but it's really just a tool for me personally. But we have very clear rules within Accenture on how it should be used and what data should be ingested into it. And we have our own instance of it. So there are ways that companies that are producing large language models are actually helping to protect you, in that you can have an instance of it within your firewall. So as you're using it, it's your own company's data, and it's not going outside of your organization. So that's something that you always want to be thinking about as well, how it's set up systemically within the walls of your company.
I'll just add, I think we should, it's using real common sense thinking, what would you do, what would you put out there personally in social media should also be something you should be thinking about. I think Rachel said it, but how do you govern your information today is really critical. So you should have your own tools and guidelines for yourself, but companies are developing guidelines, right? So you shouldn't put any company or customer or client information in ChatGPT, because that wouldn't be the right thing to do. But in terms of being able to utilize it the right way in your day-to-day life, that you're okay to expose it, it is absolutely fine. But I think there is also, anonymizing the data is part of what goes on, so we just have to be aware of that as well.
And also, all of these big companies, the only way they're going to survive is when they're able to do enterprise clients. So they are racing as fast as possible to develop products that your companies can buy that allow them to monetize what they're doing. So there's a little bit of a drag, but you'll start to see the separated instances.
Hi, my name is Alana George. I'm an executive director at Analytics. Company's Omnicom, and I'm one of your senior ladies in the analytics world. And my question, because you're all in prestigious roles and at the table, very similar to the young woman we have for our name in Google, who, when they did find how bias was so prevalent in marginalized communities, and we had the research, we had the studies, and she spoke up for that, and was penalized. So if you have any stories that you've had challenges, but how you were able to overcome it, whether in your existing role or in another role, when it came to this space, because the space, again, is new. No one's an expert, but it's still politics.
Yeah. I mean, just general advice to that, because a lot of this work to do things responsibly take time to make sure your data is strong. I mean, there's friction there, right? And so I think the key is speaking in terms of your company, sort of what are the priorities of your executives, sort of how are they thinking, and making sure you're framing these issues in a way that they can understand and that you're showing how it's aligning to their goals in a way. So I think, and unfortunately in this space, a lot of it sometimes is framing like, this is the risk we'll be mitigating, and this is sort of what we're saving by making sure we address this issue up front. That's sort of like a generalized comment. Obviously, there's bigger issues of retaliation there. That is a separate issue. But generally speaking, a lot of this work, it's not everyone will just do what's the right thing to do. Like, you have to make the business case and kind of walk them through. Kind of what was said on the main stage by Judy, like, bring the facts, show some examples, and have a story to tell.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I would just say that there will always be bad actors. There will always be people that are looking to take advantage of any loopholes that you have in your data within your company. I think the governance piece is really important, but I think continuing to test for that bias, always having a plan in place to continue to test, but also when I speak to our clients, we always start with, think about that business goal. Take a business mindset. What are you trying to achieve with AI? And think about how you're going to measure your success. What does that look like? And let that be that North Star that you're heading towards. And then, of course, getting your people involved, bringing the right people to the table to have them go along the journey with you, to be those catalysts. And think about your systems and your tools that are in place that they can accommodate what you're trying to achieve. So that those are some of the pieces that you want to have, those building blocks in place.
We can take one more question and then we'll go, they want us to clear the room when we finish. So we'll just be right outside and I'll answer questions until you're done. Okay.
Good morning. My name is Makani Tungar. I work for Dell Technologies, and I lead social and environmental responsibility for the supply chain. So I lead a team of people who are subject matter experts in human rights and emissions and audit specialists, so very technical people. We've invested in technology to digitize and automate and try to modernize the work that we do in our space. How do I support my team and train my team to be more AI proficient when there's a limit to the amount of capital I get to invest in technology? So I'm getting that. I've done what I can do. But beyond training them on ChatGPT and telling them to get more proficient, what more can I do to upskill my team? What additional skills for these type of technical people should I be encouraging them to get at this process? Thank you.
On implementations, I think it's you.
Yeah, I think especially with ChatGPT, with large language models, it's created new roles around prompt engineering, around the design work, a lot of work around data. And as I said, at Accenture, we made a concerted effort to make sure that everyone is getting trained across all aspects to become AI literate. So I think advocating, and it's not a heavy lift in terms of the investment. And we, not to plug, but I'm going to plug. We've done this amazing job to create this AI Academy that we're working with, not just us building it, but we're working with Stanford, we're working with Berkeley, MIT, the Turing Institute. We're bringing in we're working with our partners, with Amazon, with Google, with Microsoft. We're bringing the best thinkers together to create curriculums, because exactly what you're saying, companies are saying, now we have to become AI literate. So we're working with the best minds across this landscape to create an academy that can educate all aspects of the organization, because it's really critical, because you won't get, again, if we don't democratize AI, you will never get the full potential of it. So if you don't make it readily available to people in your organization, whether it's simple online courses or the Accenture AI Academy or anything in between, you're never going to see the benefits that you're looking for. So I would just say, think about the options that are out there externally and internally to your company.
And a quick Salesforce plug, we have a free online learning tool called Trailhead that has trainings that anyone could go on and learn about many of the things we talked about today. So that, but also I've been really pleasantly surprised. There's a ton of free online courses as well. Absolutely. And so dig in, and a lot of them specified for different industries. So I would just say there might be some stuff you can also pull together, as well as just make the internal business case, like executive training programs, things like that.
I just want to add one tech leader at Amazon allows her team to at least take 2 hours training a month or half a day, depending on what they choose, and they would facilitate a session, or they will just allow them to go find opportunities for training. So I think really creating the culture of learning is a really important part of this one as well.
Great point.
Yeah, and what we've seen in different types of research is that there is a threshold. So the journey is AI exposure to curiosity, to curiosity to experimentation. And so there's like this threshold. And so what happens is that you have to spend enough time with it. A friend of mine calls it FAFO, which is like around and find out. And so, so once you get to a certain level, like you want your people to get to the level where the first question they ask, and for you, the first question you ask is, could I use AI for this? And once that happens, you become a power user. So, depending on research, it's like 5 or 6 hours of just trying things. And they have to be real things that you care about. Just trying things, and then you flip. And then once that happens, you're like, oh, this one guy described it as, it's like if you discovered a house next to yours with, 100,000 people who are willing to work for you for free. It's like you have that much range. So with that, we're going to close it. Thank you so much. The last thing I would say is that as Black women, I want you to know that you are uniquely predisposed for this opportunity. It's a time of great uncertainty. It's a time that requires, you know, there's pessimists and then there's pure optimists, but one of the things that we nail better than anyone is hope, and hope is fierceness in the face of asymmetric power. We've done that. We're all here because that's what we do. And so that combination of your tenacity and your curiosity and your fierceness and your hope in times of uncertainty, which means this opportunity is for you. It is for you, and so go take it. And that's it.